Let me ask you a question. Do you think the Big Ten and the SEC are done expanding? You're wrong if you think they are done.
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin, back with you, and it's great to be back with you. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth. Realignment, transfer portal, coaching carousel. We've got it all every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. So, Boise State has added the most underrated transfer in the 2024 cycle. Talk about that, and realignment comes for us all because that's just the way the world works. But we start today with the Big Ten and the SEC, who have made these big moves and yet give no indication that they are satisfied. Absolutely none. Texas and Oklahoma were announced a couple of years ago. The move has finally taken place. USC and UCLA announced July 2022. That was quite an eventful day, to say the least. They added Oregon and Washington later. The Big Ten has 18 teams. The SEC has got 16. These conferences are not going to be done. The reason I sense this is the case is nothing about their actions over the last 365 days or the previous 365 days before the last calendar year came and went have indicated that they are content to sit where they are at. And so there is this generalized sense in the college sports landscape right now that if you're not making a move, if you're not doing something, you're falling behind. And neither one of these conferences want to be caught with their pants down. Neither one of these conferences want to be seen as anything except a dominant power player. And Florida State is unhappy. They're grumbling in the ACC. They're trying to get out. They're seeing if it'll work. What's the number? What's the legal situation? Can we even do this sort of stuff? I think if the Big Ten's smart, they go get them. But if they don't, the SEC almost certainly will. I don't know how Florida State could just sit there as a premier brand, as a great team. You bring in the state of Florida. I mean, how in the world could that not be an attractive product to a conference who, at the end of the day, with all this realignment, is trying to make the best television product possible? You want to load up your league. You want to have all the best teams. You want to be assertive. It is hunt or be hunted. And they have done a lot of hunting so far, but they're not done. They were able to go out and pick up a deer. Yeah, that's great. But if you're playing Oregon Trail, you need more than the one deer. You got to bring back a whole host of meat back to the camp, or, your fake kids will die of dysentery, something like that. I forget all the verbiage in that particular game, but Oregon Trail, what an elite video game that I played extensively as a kid, which I still kind of am. But anyway, I don't get the sense whatsoever that these two conferences are done. Because when asked about it, you don't see them shut all of this stuff down. In fact, the Big Ten, the last time there was, a somewhat defiant or definitive quote that a move wasn't going to get made, the move was made. It was with regards to Oregon and Washington. The Big Ten was asked about it. I believe Tony Petitti had taken over at the time and said, we're not looking to do this sort of stuff. We're good. We're not actively pursuing. They cost how much? Half? We get two for the price of one? Okay, yeah, you guys come on in. Come on over here. Yeah, the Pac-12 is going to implode because of it. Yeah, don't worry about it. Welcome to the Big Ten. And so if these two leagues that feel destined one day to form a Power 2 conference structure that resembles, perhaps not identically, but is similar to the AFC and the NFC, these moves have to continue to get made. They have to continue to get made. And I just almost feel like these schools, these universities, these conferences, I feel like they get bored sometimes. I feel like they get bored and they say, all right, let's just do this. Well, we got to be doing something. Can't just be doing nothing. Do you realize, think about this, all the moves and realignment that we have seen, there has not been a single game played by a former Pac-12 school in the Big Ten or the Big 12, and Texas and Oklahoma have not taken a snap in the SEC. Does it feel that way? Does it give off that impression? I know logically you might say, well, yeah, no, it hasn't happened yet. But we feel further along in this particular process than we actually are. We haven't seen Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC. We haven't seen Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA in the Big Ten. That hasn't taken place yet. They haven't played their first conference games. And yet chatter and just kind of a gut instinct for me is saying they're going to make another move. It's a question of when, not a question of if. And Florida State is the next domino to fall. Everyone is waiting on what is their legal battle going to result in. Will they be able to break out of the grant of rights? Or do they have to stay in the ACC? Can they work out a dollar amount that is good enough for them to go to the Big Ten or the SEC? And here's the other factor with why I don't get the sense the Big Ten and the SEC are done. You could look at the moves they've made and say, wow, they've brought in big television markets, they've brought in big brands, they've strengthened their conferences on the football field. These have been tremendous moves. All of those things from a conference level are absolutely true. But did any of those moves need to happen? Did the SEC need Texas and Oklahoma to allow their conference to win a national championship? No. No, certainly not. Did the Big Ten need it? No. No, they came very close with Ohio State. Michigan broke through last year, wins a national championship. So to say that any of these moves were needed, because that I think is a pretty logical pushback. If you say, are the Big Ten and the SEC, are they going to expand again? Well, they don't need to. They've got these teams. Well, they didn't need to in the first place. There was no burning desire that came from a sense of desperation, that came from a sense of urgency and survival. It was all just rooted in greed and power. And guess what? Those opportunities are once again going to be available pending what happens in Tallahassee in the courtrooms. But need has nothing to do with any of this sort of stuff. They're thinking, how can we capitalize on what is essentially a power vacuum in college athletics? The NCAA is becoming more and more toothless by the day. It didn't have a big role in college football to begin with. The conferences did. And so the conferences have just been testing the limits of, wait a minute, how much power can we work with here? How much can we get? How much can we obtain? We want more. We want more. And that, it's like doomsday. All right, as you attack Doomsday, which is a villain in the DC universe, what happens when you shoot at Doomsday? He actually just gets stronger. Well, right now, Doomsday's going out. He's trying to find all the ammunition he can find. Hey, rocket launcher, shoot it at me. If that thing doesn't have kryptonite, I'm going to be okay. I'm actually going to get stronger and more powerful. The conferences are Doomsday. And so they're just continuing to grow and foster their power and their influence and the amount of money that they can make. And who's going to stop them? Not the NCAA. If Florida State gets out, chaos could ensue. And these conferences will continue to want to add. Boise State added the most underrated move, most underrated player, most under-discussed move, however you want to phrase it. Boise State made a move. We got to talk about the Broncos. You got to hear about what the Broncos did if you didn't know already. First, though, you need to hear about Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. Right now, all users get $100 off when you buy a big game ticket with that code VEGAS100. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying Tickets. Game Time's the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. You can see the view from your seat before you buy, so you know what to expect. You can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 tabs, all that and more. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time right now. All Game Time users get $100 off a big game ticket with code VEGAS100. Terms apply. Just download the Game Time app. Use code VEGAS100 for $100 off a big game ticket. Or if you're not going to the game, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Do you understand what Boise State has done? First, let me set the stage here. So, a G5 team is getting into the playoff. It's going to happen. That's a guarantee. It's a certainty. It's baked into the 12-team playoff. Do I think it should be there? No, but it is there. Thus, we discuss it as such here on the show. And I remind everyone at every opportunity that I possibly can that a group of 5 team is going to get into the playoff, because when I talk about teams like a Boise State or a Tulane or maybe a James Madison out there or another Mountain West team like maybe Fresno State could make a push or the like, you look across the country, someone is going to get there, and it won't be SMU, because SMU, they're in the Power 4. They are in the Power 4. So, Boise State has made the most under-the-radar move that could have tremendous results for 2024 and could help them push for a college football playoff spot. Because Boise State added Malachi Nelson. What do you remember about the name Malachi Nelson? For any USC fans out there listening or watching, you don't really know what he is. Therefore, no one really knows what he is. He's only attempted 3 passes in his career. But that also adds to my reasoning as to why this is the most under the radar and potentially impactful move in all of college football this offseason, particularly amongst the group of 5. So if I just told you off the bat that Boise State got a quarterback recruit who was top 5 in his position, who was top 12 nationally, the 12th ranked player in the country, regardless of position, who's a 5-star recruit, would you feel differently? Would you have a greater sense of excitement and anticipation there? I think that's being tampered down a bit because Malachi Nelson is a transfer. And so that carries with it a little bit of doubt, a little bit of, well, why didn't he work out there? Because it's USC. All we know about Malachi Nelson, the only things that we know, he was not good enough to beat out Caleb Williams, who won the Heisman Trophy the year before he got there. Okay, that was just never going to happen. And Miller Moss, who is going to be USC's starter this year, who in the Holiday Bowl against a Louisville team that had an exceptional defense went for, over 400 yards and 6 touchdowns. Those are the guys, that's all the information we have. His career passing numbers are 1 of 3 for 0 yards. That's not information. That's not data. He might as well have attempted 0 passes for all that we know. So to think of him in the context of going to Boise State, he could be what Taylon Green was last year. He could also be a lot better than what Taylon Green was last year. Boise State, by the way, did not get hammered by the transfer portal this offseason. They brought in a couple players, but overall, their roster should be among the best in the Mountain West, as it is every single year. San Diego State's in a rebuild season. Fresno State, they will be good. Air Force, high floor, low ceiling sort of team. Could somebody else like a Wyoming pop up? They've got a new head coach over there. Boise State is going to be the favorite in the Mountain West. They should be the favorite in the Mountain West. Because when you bring in Malachi Nelson at quarterback, you're bringing in someone who has a tremendous level of talent. 12th overall player in his class, not for group of 5 recruiting, not in the Mountain West, in the entire country. That's the sort of talent that Malachi Nelson possesses. His comparison, according to 24/7 Sports Analyst, is Jordan Love. That's a first-round NFL draft pick. That's what his ceiling is. That's what he could possibly be. Jordan Love also, by the way, competed in the Mountain West, went to Utah State up there in Logan, who've got a beautiful football stadium. If you haven't seen it, it's quite nice. So when I think about this move, I think about the immense potential that Nelson brings to the table. And so you understand, by the way, that Boise State just had one of the most unique seasons in all of college football. Boise State last year goes in with Andy Avalos, and there is some pressure to win. There's some pressure to win, and it doesn't go well. He's over 500 winning games, but it's not the Boise State standard. And I commend them for making a change. And so they promote their defensive coordinator to the interim coach, and he wins 3 games in a row, including a Mountain West Conference championship game. Well, kind of hard to not hire that particular individual, and so they did. He lost the bowl game to UCLA, a roster that was more talented than the one Coach Danielson and company were able to put on the field. But last year, at the quarterback position, I would not describe what Broncos fans were treated to as Kellen Moore caliber, shall we say. It wasn't even Zabransky caliber, going back to perhaps the greatest college football game I've ever watched on television may ever seats. That and the Rose Bowl championship between Texas and USC a couple of years prior. So Talon Green has transferred to Arkansas. Big guy, talented, big arm, moves well. He completed 57% of his passes last year. 57%. 11 touchdowns passing. Granted, he had 9 rushing, but 11 touchdowns passing, 9 interceptions. That's... boy, I tell you. It's not inspiring confidence there. So Boise State, I bring that up to say, just won the Mountain West with a coach who ended up getting fired and a quarterback that completed less than 60% of his passes and had darn near a 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. So what happens if Malachi Nelson comes in and, I don't know, lives up to 70% of his potential? He'd be a lot better than what they had last year. They seem to have hired a head coach who was better than the guy that they had before, which is weird because he was his defensive coordinator. But hey, sometimes the guy waiting in the wings is the right guy for the job, and Danielson looked to be that. Malachi Nelson has got all the talent in the world. This is a huge pickup for Boise State. And after an 8-win season last year, yeah, I look at Boise State and I say, could they get back to being the old Boise? Is that possible? Can they get there? Excuse me, they had a 10-win season last year. They were a perfect 8-0 in conference play, which is, or I beg your pardon. That was the year before. I was getting the wrong information there. But the point, I apologize for that, Broncos fans. That was poor preparation on my part. I should have noted that down. I did not have that in my notes. Full responsibility. My fault. So the point that I am making here is that Boise State, when they are at their best, that's the premier football program in the Mountain West. That is the flagship football program of the conference. You have taken one of the elite group of 5 teams out of the group of 5 in SMU and opened the door for another team to step in or to just make a greater likelihood that one of the teams we're accustomed to seeing over the last couple of years, Boise State and Tulane, for instance, to make it to the college football playoff. And with Malachi Nelson at the helm, I mean, if he completes at the helm of this offense, just 62%, which is not great, 62%, and goes 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. Boise State, with a guy who appears to be a better head coach in the early returns, would be getting a better production out of their quarterback than what they had last year, and they still managed to win the Mountain West. I would not sleep on this move. I would not sleep on it one little bit. Hence why it is a subject of discussion on today's show. Boise in the Mountain West, boy, I tell you. Here's what I'll close with on the Malachi Nelson. If you're a Boise State fan out there listening to or watching this and wanting another piece of optimism, I've got it for you. He played for 1 year, granted it was all at practice, under Lincoln Riley. That guy is the quarterback whisperer. 3 different. Heisman Trophy winners, another finalist. He's about to produce his third number one draft pick. I'm on board with any quarterback that's just breathed the same air, breathed the same offense, worked in that offense, taken reps, learned from him, been coached by him. I expect him to be better than what Taylon Green was a season ago, and I expect Boise State to go into the Mountain West this season as the clear favorites. And if they don't make the conference championship game, that'd be a big, big letdown for the Broncos. College realignment, it eventually falls upon us all. Quite literally in ways that you don't even expect. I do expect you all to check out FanDuel, though, because you can get buckets with FanDuel. That is America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. That's simple. They also have all the college football bets you could possibly want. Conference championship game or conference champion odds are up there. You can do win totals. You can do anything and everything that you want for college football. You can even bet individual games. And if your bet wins, right now you'd have to bet on the NBA or college basketball. March Madness coming up, of course. You want to spice that up, by all means. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel.com/lockedon, FanDuel official sportsbook partner of the NBA. College realignment knows no bounds. Absolutely, positively, none. UMass is going to the Mid-American Conference. UMass, the Minutemen of UMass, are into a conference. I think this is a sign, once again, that the Pac-12 is destined to rebuild itself. Because UMass feels that they've got to be a part of a conference to just keep playing football. I mean, this is a program that when I tell you it's been tough over there for the Minutemen, I mean, they have to be celebrating every win like they have just won a major bowl game or perhaps the national championship. Wins are hard to come by over there. This is not a program that's got any sort of tradition. This is not a program that's got any sort of financial backing. They do now have a conference affiliation. And this, to me, solidifies that Oregon State and Washington State can perhaps temporarily survive as what we are essentially deeming them to be independents. They're playing Mountain West Plus schedules this year. They've got a few more Power 4 or Power 5 schools on the schedule. They've got each other. But if UMass feels like they need to join a conference, Oregon State, Washington State, you're probably going to have an actual conference there. Now, in the short term, of course, this is going to work at some level. And heck, Oregon State and Washington State without conference championship will still have some access to the playoff. They win 11 games, either one of them, they'd at least be in the discussion. Obviously, if you win 12, you're probably in. Now, that's an immensely difficult thing to do. I don't know that either team is equipped to do that. But UMass is joining the Mid-American Conference. You know it as Tuesday Night Maction. Okay, Tuesday and Wednesday night Maction throughout the college football season is now going to include the Minutemen of UMass. And this is just the perfect example of how realignment eventually comes for all of us, no matter where we are, what level of football we play, what fan base we're a part of. It doesn't matter. It's nonstop. Hence my lead on today's show, why I feel the Big Ten and the SEC are going to expand again. It's just a matter of when, not if. No one is ever content to just sit still and stand pat and let something be. They've always got to be making moves. So this is just personified in the addition of UMass to the Mid-American Conference. And look, there's some geographical fit. You look at teams like Bowling Green or Kent State in the Mid-American Conference and UMass is in Massachusetts. You go, yeah, all right. That tracks geographically. But what exactly are they bringing to the table? Oh, boy. Well, first of all, they used to be a member of the MAC. They used to be a member of our beloved Tuesday Night Maction and soon to be national championship caliber programs in EA College Football 25. So UMass, you talk about going to take a tough job if you're a head coach in that game. UMass might be the toughest job there is. They have not had a season over 500. You get ready for this. Since 2010. In that time, they have had a bevy of seasons in which they have won just the one football game. They got more one-win seasons than winning seasons since 2010. That is tough. So this is not a move that is being done to bolster the football profile of the Mid-American Conference. No, UMass wants to keep playing football. Some people might ask why. I commend them for doing so. I think every corner of this country should have football to go watch in person and root for. In small towns that might not have a whole lot going on, football should be the biggest game in town, whether it's high school football or college football. They're both fantastic sports and something that makes America distinctly unique from the rest of the country or from the rest of the world. If you go to Europe, they don't play college football. They don't play college sports. We play college sports. That's how we roll. So UMass going in, I did not do an academic deep dive, but it is my understanding that they bring something to the table on that front, which brings me to my favorite quote, which will be written across my tombstone when I pass away, which is hopefully a very long time from now. Some of you may wish it sooner, but too bad. I plan on living. Presidents vote on realignment, not athletic directors. That athletic directors, coaches, fans, alumni, nope, it's presidents. Presidents make the move, and the MAC wants an affiliation with UMass, so they have got it. Bringing this back to the Pac-12. If even UMass is in a conference, BYU's in a conference, Liberty's joined a conference, there are no more independents. There are no more independents in college. I mean, Army and Navy have joined a conference. Navy was the one, I believe, that was independent most recently. But they have now both joined the American Conference. Everybody's got to have a league. And so the Pac-12 is going to return. It is not a matter of if, in my mind. It is a matter of when. And look, the moves that it'll take to get there, UMass is not going to be on their radar. That would, yeah, don't worry about that. The moves that'll make that happen will probably be announced within the next year. Remember, USC and UCLA to the Big Ten was announced July 2022. They have not played their first conference game in the new league yet. Hasn't taken place. And it was announced a couple of years ago. Texas and Oklahoma to the SEC. Also announced several years in advance. To move everything over, to change a conference, to get all your teams aligned, that stuff has to be done at least a year out. You can make do about a year. There's an example at the FCS level. The United Athletic Conference was put together on somewhat short notice. It was a merger between the ASUN and the WAC, who didn't have enough teams, so they merged together, and you got teams going from Eastern Kentucky all the way over to southwestern Utah. And so as a result, that conference came about. It exists at the FCS level. It was done in about a year. But that's the minimum amount of time that you need. There are a lot of logistical matters involved with leaving one conference and joining another conference and getting everybody ready and figuring out logistics and travel. And there are a million different things that take place behind the scenes for something like that. So these sorts of moves are going to be on the horizon. And I bring this up on today's show to say that there is no end in sight for this realignment. 3 years ago, Liberty, BYU, and UMass were all playing independent football. How few remain, and it's not a place where it feels like you can be. You're either on the prowl or getting hunted. That's the game, and I don't know how it cools down. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.